Quadratic formula. Just like it says, the quadratic formula can be used to solve any, keyword there, which is why it's in caps, any quadratic equation. So anytime we see an x squared in a problem, that indicates that we have a quadratic equation, and we can use this formula right here. Now this formula typically gives you two answers, and the two answers come from that plus or minus part. So, using the quadratic formula, we have to first find the values of a, b, and c. And I like everyone to find the value of b squared minus 4ac before they jump into plugging everything in. So for the first example, we have our a, our b, and our c. And I'm going to apologize now for the rest of the year. And the handwriting that you will see is not going to be, well, let's just say it's not going to be fantastic. So anyways, we have a equals 2. We have b equals 11, and c equals negative 21. Then we're going to find the value of b squared minus 4ac. That way we don't have to keep writing it in the equation over and over again. It just saves some time. So we have 11 squared minus 4 times 2 multiplied by the negative 21. That works out to be 289. From there, we're going to take everything and plug it in. So x equals negative b, which is negative 11, plus or minus the square root of 289, all over 2a. 2 times the a value is 2, so that's 4. Alright, so every once in a while the square root of the number under the radical works out to be nice, so you should always try that just in case, because hey, you never know. So square root 289 works out to be 17, so that's kind of nice. So x equals negative 11 plus or minus 17 all over 4. Now, a lot of people for some reason think that it's okay to just leave it here, and this is like torture for a math teacher, because you all know a negative 11 plus 17, or at least you have a calculator that will know what it is. And to not find the answer is just baffling, because you can do it, and you should do it, and you'll lose credit if you don't do it. So, negative 11 plus 17 and negative 11 minus 17, you need to do both of them. So I'll break it up. This plus or minus part right here, that's where we're going to end up with the two parts. So x equals negative 11 plus 17 over 4, and x equals negative 11 minus 17 all over 4. So negative 11 plus 17 over 4 is going to be 6 over 4, which becomes 3 over 2, or 1.5. Doesn't really matter what you write. Then negative 11 minus 17 over 4 is going to be, well, negative 28. So negative 28 over 4, which means x is now going to equal 7. Negative 7, that is. So we have our answers of 3/2 and negative 7. And again, if you leave it like this, you'll make your math teacher cry. Don't do that. Alright, example 2. Alright, moving on to example 2. Alright, so let's go through, find our a, b, and c. A is going to equal 3, b is going to equal negative 8, and c is 2. And again, the a, b, and c, the a is always the number in front of the x squared, the b is always the number in front of the x, and the c is the number all by itself. So, we need to find b squared minus 4ac. Now this problem is the one where it gets a little bit harder. I'm guessing b squared minus 4ac, again, is not going to work out. And it's also got something else. Our b squared minus 4ac is really a negative 8 squared. Now, I don't know why anyone would ever write negative 8 squared other than the teacher teaching you this one time, because I don't ever do it, I just do it in my head. Negative 8 squared in the calculator is not going to work out. The calculator will take negative 8, or I'm sorry, 8, and square it if you type it in, and then multiply by negative 1, giving you negative 64, when you know that a negative 8 times another negative becomes a positive 64. So do that part in your head and just write 64 in the calculator. Save yourself the time of all those parentheses, the negatives, and the squaring, and just write 64, and you'll be good to go. So when we do that, we get 40 for this guy right here. So this becomes 40. So now we're going to plug into our formula. X equals negative b. Now, it's a negative of negative 8, so two negatives make a positive, so it's 8 plus or minus the square root of 40 all over 2a. Well, 2 times 3 is going to give us 6. Now we need to break the 40 down. Breaking the 40 down is fairly straightforward. We just go ahead and use the calculator, or you can find the perfect squares, but I think menu 2-3 on the new calculators, when you finally get one in your hands, is the way to do it. Menu number factor is what we're using. It actually breaks it down and gives you the prime factors. So after you've done menu 2-3, type the 40 inside parentheses, you're going to end up with 2 cubed and 5. If you multiply 2 cubed times 5, you'll notice you get 40. Anyways, we want to break it down to a square root we know. So we have a square root of 2 squared and a square root of whatever's left. Well, I have a 5 left, and I didn't quite use from my 2 cubed up here all of them, so I have a 2 left. So 5 times 2. So this is square root 10. And the square root of 2 squared is really the square root of 4. Really, the square root just cancels with the squared, and you're left with 2 radical 10. So now we've taken the square root of 40 and broken it down. Others of you might prefer to use the perfect square method, and that's fine. If you like that, go right ahead. So we now need to plug it in. X equals 8 plus or minus 2 square root 10 all over 6. And the last thing we need to do is simplify. So what can I do to simplify? Well, I'm only ever allowed to divide. So obviously I can't divide 8 by 6. That's not going to work out. But I can divide 8 and 6 by the number 2. But we have to be careful. A lot of people forget this. You have to take a look at the number that's right in front of this radical. And if that number is not also divisible by what these two guys right here are divisible by, you can't do it. So all 3 must be divisible, all 3 of these guys, by the exact same thing. If they're not, you're done. But I can divide 8, 2, and 6 by 2, so I'm going to, and I'm going to come up with my final answer. So x equals, divided by 2, I get 4 plus or minus 1 square root 10. That's supposed to be a plus or minus. That's just a horrible plus or minus. All over 3. So again, I took the 8, divided it by 2 and got 4. The 2, divided it by 2 and got 1. The 6, divided by 2 and got 3. Now I wrote the 1 here. You don't technically have to. It's like, do people really write, and I guess if you look up here now, do people really write 1x very often? No. But it's not wrong when you do it. So just like I did right here, it's not wrong that I did it, but most people won't. And you probably will never see that on an exam. Alright, last question. So, 2x squared minus 13. This was the style question on the Regents this past June. Oddly enough. Kind of a fun question. Alright, so again, the number in front of the x squared term is going to be your a. So our a is equal to 2. The number in front of the x term is going to be b. And the number that's all by itself is going to be your c. So notice there isn't an x term. Notice I didn't write anything. That would be 0. There is nothing there. It is done. 0. So that makes solving this a little bit different, but different is okay. So we're going to find our b squared minus 4ac. So that's 0 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is a big old negative 13. Go to the calculator, type that bad boy in, and you're going to end up with 104. Now you do want to type in the 0 squared minus 4 or negative 4 times 2 times negative 13, but it should work out to be 104. So we're going to plug into the formula. X equals negative b. Well, negative 0 is still just 0. Plus or minus the square root of 104 all over 2a, which is 2 times 2, 4. From there we need to break it down. So again, the menu number factor breaks that down pretty well. So go to your calculator, type it in. So we get 2 cubed times 13. So we have to again have a square root that we know and a square root that we don't. Well, I can't square root 2 cubed. I don't know what the square root of that is, but I do know the square root of 2 squared. And I don't have a 13 that I can't square root, and I'm going to be left with an extra 2 because I'm supposed to have a power of 3 up here, and I only have 2. So I got to have 1 more up there. Okay. So we're left with a square root of 26, and this becomes 2 root 26. So our answer is x equals 0 plus or minus. We really don't need that 0 there anymore. It's okay if it is, but we can get rid of it. all over 4. Well, that 0, like I said, doesn't really need to be there. 0 plus anything is just itself. So we technically just have a plus or minus. Let's see if we can erase it here. Look at that. So we technically just have a plus or minus, a positive and negative, 2 square root 26 over 4. So now, since there aren't 3 parts like we had in this question up here, we had 3 things we had to worry about dividing the same thing, we only have 2 now, we divide. So x equals plus or minus 1 square root of 26 all over 2. Now I didn't mention it in the last problem, but some of you are probably wondering, can I divide this? And the answer is no, never. Never, never, never. Cannot divide the number under the radical by a number that's not under a radical. So that's why up here the 10 stayed 10. That's why right here the 26 remains 26. We never touch that number under the radical. Now, if you've made it this far, congratulations. I'm pretty sure that this formula right here, this quadratic formula, Miss Griffin can sing you a song to this to help you remember it. Not that you need to, but you should pester her about that. Alright, that's it for this video.